Hey everybody, it's me Dilshan and welcome to another video tutorial from the Lazy but Smart Sinhala blog. Episode 3, Your Nationality. Here's a short summary of what we saw in the previous episode. I introduced you to some basic possessives such as mage, which means my, oyage, which means informal your, and eage, which could mean either his or her. I then showed you two easy methods to introduce yourself. Using the name Pat as an example, we learned to say my name is Pat, which was mage nama Pat, and I am Pat, which was simply mama Pat. We then went on to learn how to ask someone what is your name, which in Sinhala was oyage nama mokagda. And just before we finished, you learned the word for thank you, which was istuti, and using this, you then learned to say I am fine, thank you, which was either mama honding innawa istuti or honding innawa istuti. Now that you've refreshed your memory, let's look at what we'll cover in this episode. We'll start off by learning to ask someone which country they're from, and the phrase we'll use is, what is your country? Using that, I'll show you two ways how you could tell someone which country you're from. The first method will be to say the equivalent of my country is, and the second method would be to say I am from. And in the last section, I'll show you a simple method to change a statement into a question, and then we'll use that to ask a few more questions relating to someone's country, such as, is your country? And are you from? Okay, let's go. Section 1. Asking someone which country they're from. There are a couple of ways to ask this, but I've chosen the one that I think is the simplest at this early stage for you, and that is to ask, what is your country? Here's a snapshot from episode 2. We learned to ask what is your name in Sinhala, which was oyage nama mokagda. Remember that we didn't use an equivalent for the word is, and that word for word, this translated as, your name what? In the same way, in order to ask what is your country, once again, we don't need to use the word is, and so we just need to create a question that literally reads, your country what? You know that your is oyage, and that what is mokagda. So all that is missing is the word for country, which is rata. Rata. So much like oyage nama mokagda, which meant what is your name, to ask what is your country, we ask oyage rata mokagda. Now we can ask similar questions by simply replacing oyage with the other possessives that we've already seen. For example, what is his or her country would be eage rata mokagda, and we can replace eage with the name of a person, such as Ricky, and ask what is Ricky's country, which in Sinhala would be rikige rata mokagda. Section 2. Telling someone which country you're from. Once again, there are a number of ways you can tell someone which country you're from, but I've selected just two ways that are the easiest since they build on the things that we learned in the previous episodes. Here is method 1. Learning to say my country is. Let's take the country Sri Lanka as an example, and let's try to say my country is Sri Lanka. Going back to another snapshot of episode 2, we saw that my name is Pat was mage nama Pat. You'll remember that the word is was implied and the sentence directly translated as my name Pat. So in the name way to say my country is Sri Lanka, we don't use the word is since it's already implied, which means that we just need a sentence that literally reads my country Sri Lanka. We know that my is mage, and we just saw that country is rata. So all that's missing is the Sinhala name for Sri Lanka, which is Sri Lankava. Don't worry about learning the Sinhala names of all the countries. You'll most likely only need to know the name of your country and perhaps Sri Lanka. At the end of this episode, I'll give you a link to a page on my site that has the Sinhala names of countries, from which you can look up the name of only your country and use it instead of Sri Lankava. Now, getting back, our sentence, my country is Sri Lanka, is mage rata Sri Lankava. Similarly, your country Sri Lanka would be oyage rata Sri Lankava. His or her country Sri Lanka is eage rata Sri Lankava, and Ricky's country Sri Lanka is rikige rata Sri Lankava. Section 3. Let's look at the second method of telling someone which country you're from. Let's learn to say I am from. In spoken Sinhala, we don't often use a standalone word for the word from. Instead, we add the indicator N to the original word to signify from. Let's look at an example. The word for from Sri Lanka is Sri Lankaven. This is made by taking the singular name for Sri Lanka, which you now know is Sri Lankava, cutting out the last vowel and adding the indicator N to create Sri Lankaven. You'll remember that in the previous episode we used the indicator ge to create a possessive. N, on the other hand, indicates from. Let's look at some examples to make it even more clear for you. Let's learn to say from England. So what do we need to do? We need to take the single name of England, which is Engalantaya. Once again, you don't need to remember this. We cut out the closed at the end of the word, and we add the indicator N to create Engalantayen. Similarly, to say from India, like before, we'll take the singular name of India, which is Indiava, cut out the closed at the end, and add the indicator N to create Indiaven. And here's a final example. To say from Australia, we'll take the singular name of Australia, which is Australiava, cut out the closed and add the indicator N to create Australiaven. Here's a quick tip. In Sinhala, most country names end with V or Y, so the vowel that you'll be cutting off is often the closed Now let's see how we can say I am from. Let's start with trying to say I am from Sri Lanka. You saw in episode 2 that to say I am Pat, we just said Mama Pat, and we didn't use an equivalent for the word am. Similarly, to say I am from Sri Lanka, we just add Mama to make the sentence Mama Sri Lankaving. Let's use some other pronouns. Assume that you want to say you are from England. You just add Oya to say Oya Engalanting. In the same manner, he or she is from India is Eya Indiaving, and Ricky is from Australia will be Ricky Australiaving. Section 4. How to convert a statement into a question. So far between episodes 1 and 3, I have given you 2 question words. In episode 1, we saw the word kohomada, which meant how, and in episode 2, we saw the word mokakda, which meant what. You'll immediately notice that there is something common between these 2 words, and that is that they both end with the. So the simple trick to convert a statement into a question is to just add the word the to the end of the statement. Here, let me show you some examples. Take the statement you are fine, which in Sinhala, as you now know, is Oya hunding innawa. But to convert this to a question form, which is are you fine, we just add the to the end to ask Oya hunding innawada. Take another statement, your name is Tim, which is Oyage nama Tim. To change this into is your name Tim, we add the to the end to ask Oyage nama Timda. Now let's bring this back to asking about someone's country, which is what this episode is all about. If you don't know someone's country, you know from before to ask Oyage rata mokagda, which means what is your country. But if you thought someone was from India, for example, and you wanted to confirm it, you could now ask this person Oyage rata Indiavada, which means is your country India. Similarly, to confirm that someone is from Australia, you could now ask are you from Australia, which in Sinhala is Oya Australiavenda. And that's it for today. Let's recap what you have learned at the end of this episode. You now know how to ask someone what is your country, which is Oyage rata mokagda. You additionally know how to ask what is his or her country, which is Eage rata mokagda, and what is Ricky's country, which is Rikige rata mokagda. You also know 2 ways to tell someone which country you're from, of which the first method was to say my country is Sri Lanka, which in Sinhala was Mage rata Sri Lankava. You then learned to say your country is Sri Lanka, which was Oyage rata Sri Lankava, his or her country is Sri Lanka, which was Eage rata Sri Lankava, and Ricky's country is Sri Lanka, which was Rikige rata Sri Lankava. In section 3, we learned the second method to tell someone your country, and this was by saying I am from. We took the example of Sri Lanka and learned that to say from Sri Lanka, we take the Sinhala name for Sri Lanka, which is Sri Lankava, cut out the last vowel and add the indicator N to say Sri Lankaven. And to say I am from Sri Lanka, we just add the pronoun before Sri Lankaven to say Mama Sri Lankaven. Additionally, we saw that you are from England is Oya Engalanteng, he or she is from India is Eya Indiaveng, Ricky is from Australia is Ricky Australiaveng. We ended the episode by learning a simple method of how to convert a statement into a question, and that was to simply add the indicator the to the end of the sentence. This gave us 2 additional ways of asking about someone's country, and we saw the examples of asking, is your country India, which was Oyage rata Indiyavada, and are you from Australia, which was Oya Australiavengda. In the next episode, we'll cover age. We'll start by looking at some new pronouns such as we, they, and the formal you. We'll then look at their possessives such as our, their, and the formal your. I'll then show you an easy way of asking someone's age. Note that this will use a slightly different structure from asking someone's name or country, which as you remember is Oyage namu mokakda or Oyage rata mokakda. And we'll finish the episode by learning how you can tell someone your age. To download a free PDF of this episode, go to the Lazy But Smart Sinhala blog by clicking on the link mentioned in the description box. To go to episode 3 extras, click on this link. The extra should really help you strengthen what you learned in this episode so far. I'm Dilshan and I'll talk to you on the next episode.